Some business had detained me in Chancery Lane until 9 in the evening, and thereafter, having some inkling of a headache, I was disinclined either for entertainment or further work. I determined to make my way down to the Embankment and rest my eyes and cool my head by watching the variegated lights upon the river. Beyond comparison, the night is the best time for this place. A merciful darkness hides the dirt of the waters, and the lights of this transition age, red, glaring orange, gas yellow, and electric white, are set in shadowy outlines of every possible shade between grey and deep purple. "A warm night," said a voice at my side. I turned my head and saw the profile of a man who was leaning over the parapet beside me. It was a refined face, not unhandsome, though pinched and pale enough, and the coat collar turned up and pinned round the throat marked his status in life as sharply as a uniform. "Very warm," said I, "but not too warm for us here." "No," he said, still looking across the water. "It is pleasant enough here, just now." "It is good," he continued after a pause, "to find anything so restful as this in London. You must know a little of the irksome labour of the world, or you would not be here. But I doubt if you can be so brain-weary and footsore as I am. Sometimes I feel inclined to throw the whole thing over, name, wealth, and position, and to take some modest trade." He became silent. I looked at him in astonishment. If ever I saw a man hopelessly hard up, it was the man in front of me. He was ragged, he was dirty, unshaven and unkempt. He looked as though he'd been left in a dustbin for a week, and he was talking to me of the irksome worries of a large business. I almost laughed outright. Either he was mad or playing a sorry jest on his own poverty. He turned a haggard but very composed face upon me. "I forget myself. Of course, you would not understand. You will not believe me even when I tell you. I really have a big business in hand, a very big business. But there are troubles just now. The fact is, I make diamonds." "I suppose," said I, "you are out of work just at present?" "I'm sick of being disbelieved," he said impatiently. And unbuttoning his wretched coat, he pulled out a little canvas bag that was hanging by a cord round his neck. From this he produced a brown pebble. "I wonder if you know enough to know what that is." He handed it to me. Now, a year or so ago, I'd occupied my leisure in taking a London science degree, so that I have a smattering of physics and mineralogy. The thing was not unlike an uncut diamond of the darker sort, though far too large, being almost as big as the top of my thumb. I took out my penknife and tried to scratch it, vainly. Leaning forward towards the gas lamp, I tried the thing on my watch glass and scored a white line across that with the greatest ease. It certainly is rather like a diamond. But if so, it is a behemoth of diamonds. Where did you get it?" "I tell you I made it," he said. "Give it back to me." He replaced it hastily and buttoned his jacket. "I will sell it to you for £100, he suddenly whispered eagerly. With that my suspicions returned. If it was a diamond, how came he by it? And why should he offer it at £100? We looked into one another's eyes. He seemed eager, but honestly eager. At that moment I believed it was a diamond he was trying to sell. Yet I'm a poor man, and £100 would leave a visible gap in my fortunes, and no sane man would buy a diamond by gaslight from a ragged tramp on his personal warranty only. I put the question of purchase on one side. "How did you get it?" said I. He turned round with his back to the river and put his hands in his pockets. He sighed. "I know you'll not believe me." "Diamonds," he began, and as he spoke his voice lost its faint flavour of the tramp and assumed something of the easy tone of an educated man. "Diamonds are to be made by throwing carbon out of combination in a flux and under pressure. The carbon crystallizes out, not as black lead or charcoal powder, but as small diamonds. So much has been known to chemists for years, but no one yet has hit upon exactly the right flux or the right pressure. Consequently, the diamonds made by chemists are small and dark and worthless as jewels. I had about £1,000 when I was 21, and this, I thought, eked out by a little teaching, would keep my researches going. A year or two was spent in study at Berlin chiefly, and then I continued on my own account. The trouble was the secrecy. You see, it was important that if I really meant to make a pile, people should not know it was an artificial process and capable of turning out diamonds by the ton. So I had to work all alone. At first I had a little laboratory, but as my resources began to run out, I had to conduct my experiments in a wretched, unfurnished room in Kentish Town, where I slept at last on a straw mattress on the floor among all my apparatus. The money simply flowed away. 3 years ago, I settled the problem of the composition of the flux and got near the pressure by putting this flux of mine and a certain carbon composition into a closed-up gun barrel, filling up with water, sealing tightly, and heating. He paused. "Rather risky," said I. "Yes. It burst and smashed all my windows and a lot of my apparatus. But I got a kind of diamond powder, nevertheless. Following out the problem of getting a big pressure upon the molten mixture from which the things were to crystallize, I hit upon some researches of Dobre's in Paris. He exploded dynamite in a tightly screwed steel cylinder, too strong to burst. And I found he could crush rocks into a muck not unlike the South African bed in which diamonds are found. It was a tremendous strain on my resources, but I got a steel cylinder made for my purpose after his pattern. I put in all my stuff and my explosives, built up a fire in my furnace, put the whole concern in, and went out for a walk. I could not help laughing at his matter-of-fact manner. "Did you not think it would blow up the house? Were there other people in the place?" "It was in the interest of science," he said ultimately. "Oh, there was a costermonger family on the floor below, a begging letter-writer in the room behind mine, and 2 flower women were upstairs. Perhaps he was a bit thoughtless, but possibly some of them were out. When I came back, the thing was just where I left it, among the white-hot coals. The explosive hadn't burst the case. And then I had a problem to face. You know, time is an important element in crystallization. If you hurry the process, the crystals are small. It is only by prolonged standing that they grow to any size. I resolved to let this apparatus cool for 2 years, letting the temperature go down slowly during that time. And I was now quite out of money. And with a big fire and the rent of my room as well as my hunger to satisfy, I had scarcely a penny in the world. I can hardly tell you all the shifts I was put to while I was making the diamonds. I've sold newspapers, held horses, opened cab doors. For many weeks I addressed envelopes. And once for a week I had absolutely nothing to do. And I begged. What a week that was. One day the fire was going out, and I'd eaten nothing all day. And the little chap taking his girl out gave me 6pence. To show off. Oh, thank heaven for vanity. How the fish shop smelt. But I went and spent it all on coals. And then, well, hunger makes a fool of a man. At last, 3 weeks ago, I let the fire out. I took my cylinder and unscrewed it while it was still so hot that it punished my hands, and I scraped out the crumbling lava-like mass with a chisel and hammered it into a powder upon an iron plate. And I found 3 big diamonds and 5 small ones. As I sat on the floor hammering, my door opened, and my neighbour, the begging letter-writer, came in. He was drunk, as he usually is. "In a kiss," said he. "You're drunk," said I. "No, you mind," said he, and gave me a cunning wink, and hiccuped, and leaning up against the door with his other eye against the doorpost, began to babble of how he'd been prying in my room, and how he'd gone to the police that morning, and how they had taken down everything he had to say. "As if I was a gentleman," said he. Then I suddenly realized I was in a hole. Either I should have to tell these police my little secret and get the whole thing blown up, or be lagged as an anarchist. I gathered up my diamonds and cleared out. The evening newspapers called my den the Kentish Town Bomb Factory. And now I cannot part with the things for love or money. If I go in to respectable jewellers, they ask me to wait, and go and whisper to a clerk to fetch a policeman, and then I say I cannot wait. And I found out a receiver of stolen goods, and he simply stuck to the one I gave him and told me to prosecute if I wanted it back. I'm going about now with several £100,000 worth of diamonds round my neck, and without either food or shelter. You are the first person I've taken into my confidence. But I like your face, and I am hard driven." He looked into my eyes. "It would be madness," said I, "for me to buy a diamond under the circumstances. Besides, I do not carry hundreds of pounds about in my pocket. Yet I more than half believe your story. I will, if you like, do this. Come to my office tomorrow." "You think I'm a thief?" said he keenly. "You will tell the police. I am not coming into a trap." "Somehow I'm assured you are no thief. Here is my card. Take that anyhow. You need not come to any appointment. Come when you will." He took the card and an earnest of my goodwill. "Think better of it and come," said I. He shook his head doubtfully. "I will pay back your half-crown with interest some day. Such interest as will amaze you," said he. "Anyhow, you will keep the secret, Don't follow me." He crossed the road and went into the darkness towards the little steps under the archway leading into Essex Street, and I let him go. And that was the last I ever saw of him. I wonder sometimes what has become of him. Was he an ingenious monomaniac, or a fraudulent dealer in pebbles? Or has he really made diamonds as he asserted? He may, of course, be dead, and his diamonds carelessly thrown aside. One, I repeat, was almost as big as my thumb. It is just possible he may yet emerge upon society, and passing athwart my heavens in the serene altitude sacred to the wealthy and the well-advertised, reproach me silently for my want of enterprise. I sometimes think I might at least have risked £5.